Welcome in, everybody, to episode 83 of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Jeff Brantley here, glad to be back with you today on a Tuesday edition of the show. Hopefully you had a great Monday, a great weekend. I know certainly I did. We had a ton of fights to watch, right? We had UFC Vegas 23. We also had Bellator 256 on Friday night, so a lot of mixed martial arts to go over today. A lot of headlines for both of those cards, actually. UFC Vegas 23, we had Marvin Vettori beating Kevin Holland in the main event of that one. Then also some other notable, very notable performances on that card as well that I'll go over on episode 83 of the program today as part of my 5-minute topics. Also go over Bader's win over Lyoto Machida in the main event of Bellator 256, as I just mentioned there. And, of course, there's always a bunch of other topics, too, to go over every single program. Some other mixed martial arts stories going on right now. Dustin Poirier, Conor McGrego, they're feuding right now, even more so than they were before they just fought the last time. They're back to the kind of that old Venom, no pun intended, the new UFC apparel deal obviously there, but no pun intended, like I said, but some venom there between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor as they get set possibly to fight again on July 10th later this summer. I'm going to go over that, their ongoing story, my thoughts on that in 1 second here, right on episode 83 of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. You can always follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. Same thing on Instagram, guys, at Jeff_Brantley. Also go check out the new YouTube page. You can see again here, this is episode 2 now of when we're on video. So go check out the YouTube channel, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. I tweeted out that link before. I'll tweet it out again. It'll also be up on the website, maninthecagemmma.show. Go check that out. The audio version of the podcast still available everywhere you can get it. Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of other ones. Anchor always sends me something every day saying I'm on something else. So go, whatever you listen on, go check it out. The Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. And again, the YouTube channel, Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. And then circle it all back around. Go to the website, maninthecagemmma.show. Blog content up there. Latest episodes, the video, and a bunch of merchandise if you're interested in that. Some sweatshirts, socks, that type of thing. T-shirts. It's going to be that time of year here again. Also a pledge to become a supporter of the show tab up in the right-hand corner of the screen. A little as $1 a month, all the way up to $10 a month. Already love all of my supporters. If you want to join the team there, go check it out. As well as I should mention too, if you want to become a sponsor of the show, I have some new sponsor deals coming down the pipeline here very soon. If you are interested in being sponsored on the show, go check it out. You can get in touch with me, email with me, and we'll get you started here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. All right, everybody, let's get going into today's stories. As I said again, and if you want more in the format, if you're you missed episode 82, but you're used to listening to the podcast and how I used to do it, go check out episode 82. And I'll explain how my new format is with my 5-minute topics and then some parting shots. That'll be the deal moving forward. Again, not going to go into it like I did on episode 82, but go check that out if you missed it. If you've been a long-time listener and you missed episode 82, go check that out. But we're going to get right into my 5-minute topics today. Let me get my clock out here, and eventually I'm going to get a clock up on the screen here. I have a clock, but my software wasn't working too well for me. It was not cooperating with me the last time around. So maybe I'll try to see if I can get that up there today. If not, though, it will be up there very soon. But I am going to keep myself, again, go ahead and get my clock out here. Not that I would lie to you, of course. We never lie here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. I give the truth. Unless I start talking kind of funny. I did get my COVID vaccine the other day, my first dose of the COVID vaccine. So if I do start talking funny, maybe that's it. I haven't turned into a mutant yet, though, or a zombie, or I don't know. Am I supposed to have 5G in me yet? I don't know. But maybe if I were to, maybe that'd be the reason why. But otherwise, we don't here on the Man of the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. All right, we got our clock ready. So let's go ahead and start the clock here in just 1 second. Again, we're going to go to both sides. Marvin Vettori, his side, then Kevin Holland. And to be honest with you, Holland might be the bigger storyline coming out of this one, just because Vittori's going to get a big fight no matter what you think. And that's mostly what I'm going to get into in a second here of what's next for Marvin Vettori. Is it a title fight? Is it somebody else? Should this win be downplayed a little bit? Should it be downgraded a little bit because he didn't finish Kevin Holland? I'm going to get into that. But then we'll get into the Kevin Holland side because, again, I do think that might be the bigger question mark coming out of this fight, obviously, and the bigger story moving forward of what is Kevin Holland next, because 2020, good year for him. 2021, not so much yet. So let's start our 5-minute clock here, starting with Marvin Vettori and what's next for him. And, I was on Twitter the other day, and this was after the fight, of course, after UFC Vegas 23, and a lot of you were tweeting at me. Because I had some, I threw it out there that, hey, episode 83 coming out to start the week. I'm going to talk about Marvin Vettori. What's next for him? Is it going to be a title shot against Israel Adesanya in the middleweight division? Or is it going to be somebody else? And most people out there, a lot of you said, no, it can't be a title shot next. Kevin Holland wasn't a top 5 guy. The top 5 guys that Marvin Vettori has beat, you can count them on one hand, obviously. You can count them on a few fingers. Jack Hermanson. There's not a lot of top 5 guys. You can go a little bit deeper in the top 10 for Marvin Vettori, but there isn't a lot of top 5 guys there. Darren Till would have been a top 5 guy for him had he not pulled out of this fight and had Marvin Vettori won, but he obviously didn't fight in this one. So a lot of you out there have that opinion that, hey, you know what, Marvin Vettori has to get some more top 5, top 10 guys underneath his belt, and I totally understand that. I totally get that. And on top of that, everybody now, after this fight saying, hey, Kevin Holland, not a great year for him. He's got some holes in his game. The fact that Marvin Vettori didn't finish this fight, didn't maybe look even a little bit more impressive. I even got from somebody on Twitter that, he kept doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe that downgrades, maybe that lessens the importance of his win a little bit and maybe knocks him down to the pecking order just a little bit. So I get a lot of that. I understand a lot of that. And to be honest with you, if the UFC were to put him in, you can just go over the number of names that Marvin Vettori would fight if he didn't fight Adesanya. You can throw Jared Cannonier out there. You can you could throw Paulo Costa out there. Maybe you can throw Robert Whittaker, Kevin Gastelum. If whoever wins this or loses this weekend coming up April 17th, maybe those guys are possibilities. You can certainly throw those guys out there, and I would not hate a lot of those fights. However, my opinion here is going to be a little controversial to everybody, and it's because I do think Marvin Vettori should get a title shot next, and that's where I'm going to go with this, that I do think Vettori should get a title shot. I do think he should face Israel Adesanya next for the middleweight title. I don't think this win, the importance of it, how he fought, I don't think you should lessen the importance of this win because that it was a unanimous decision, because Marvin Vettori was doing essentially the same things over and over again. Listen, you have to fight who's in front of you. You have to go out there and beat who the UFC puts in front of you. That's any league. That's any sport. And I know the fight business. I know the UFC. I know mixed martial arts, boxing, throw that out there, combat sports in general. I know it's a little bit different than the NFL. If you go out there, the NFL gives you, they give you a schedule, right? You just got to go beat who's in front of you. And it doesn't really matter rankings-wise if you get to the Super Bowl, if you get to the playoffs, that type of thing. So I understand that. But I still think to a certain extent, Marvin Vettori should get credit for the fact that he's beaten the guys they've put in front of him. They've kept, building that ladder, climbing that ladder. They gave him Darren Till in this fight. Remember that, okay? Now, did he fight Darren Till? No, but he still agreed to fight Darren Till. It's not his fault Darren Till pulled out, okay? The UFC then gave him Kevin Holland. Marvin Vettori chose to accept that fight. He could have said no to that fight. He said, yes, I will fight Kevin Holland. So he's beaten everybody that the UFC has put in front of him. He even took, and this is before Adesanya was, of course, the title winner back when he first came to the UFC. But, Vettori, even back in the day, took Adesanya deep into their fight. Almost beat him there. Arguably was closer than anybody compared to, except for Jan Blachowicz, to beating Israel Adesanya. I believe Marvin Vettori should get the title shot next. I think he should fight Israel Adesanya. I think that should be the next fight. This was a tough win. Kevin Holland's not an easy guy to finish, and that's why I disagree too with people saying that this win for Marvin Vettori somehow is less because he didn't finish him. No, Kevin Holland's athletic. He's a guy that's tough to finish. Is his grappling pretty bad right now? Is his takedown defense pretty bad right now? Yes, but still, he's a tough guy to finish. We saw some of his athleticism. That's an easy trap fight for somebody. I think Marvin Vettori deserves it. I think he should get the fight against Israel Adesanya next. And on top of everything, again, Robert Whittaker's already fought him once. Okay, he's already fought Adesanya. Some of these other guys have already fought Adesanya. Give Marvin Vettori the shot. I'm not saying Robert Whittaker doesn't get it again, or again, we're ruling Gastelum out. But give it to Marvin Vettori. I'd say he deserves a title shot. I say this was a good win for him. I've got about 30 seconds left on the clock here. I might go a little bit over on this one because I have some Kevin Holland thoughts I'm moving on to next here, and we're going to get into those right now. But just bear with me for a second here. I'm already breaking my rule a little bit, but I'm going to go over just for a little bit here. But Kevin Holland, what's next for him? Because again, I think this is a big storyline coming out of this fight as well, that Kevin Holland had a great 2020, a fabulous 2020. 2021, though, of course, been very shaky so far. And a lot of the holes in his game are starting to show a lot, and especially that takedown defense again. And he's going to need to clean that up. He needs to go to a gym somewhere. He needs to lock himself away, and he needs to work on that takedown defense. That's an obvious one. But I think more than anything, more than even just improving upon this, I hope Kevin Holland takes the approach of, and maybe you have heard this term, maybe you haven't, but less is more. And Kevin Holland kind of, and his team, I understand you want to get back on that horse, accepting this Marvin Vettori fight after losing to Derek Brunson. I understand that. I understand any time a fighter loses, you want to get right back on that horse. But I certainly believe that sometimes less is more. And for, Kevin Holland, less is more right now should be his motto. Don't fight again for a while. Less is more this year. Your motto last year in 2020 was just keep fighting and keep winning. I'm going to be the fighter of the year. And that was great. But now your competition level is stepping up. Now guys have exploited some of these holes in your game. Some of these guys now, they have wrestling, they have grappling. Take a step back a little bit. Less is more in 2021 for Kevin Holland. And I think maybe he can get back on that horse. He's got to improve the takedown defense, but I did like his mentality in this last fight. He came out more serious. He seemed to have that look on his face of I'm gonna come take your head off and I'm gonna win this fight. And I love that. The problem is that even with that mentality, if you have as many holes in his game as he does with his takedown defense, it's not going to matter. He's got to go improve that. He's got to take a little bit of a step back. And then I think if he does that, I think we could see Kevin Holland eventually back into the winner's circle here very soon in the UFC. He's got to take a little bit of a less is more approach there. But hopefully, again, just summing everything up, Marvin Vettori, controversial, I know, but I think he should get a title shot next. I think Israel Adesanya should be next. I think we should get that rematch this time for the middleweight title. I think that'd be fabulous. Now, what the UFC wants to do with Adesanya still, I don't know. I'd imagine they don't want him to fight at light heavyweight again. I imagine they want him to come back down, then maybe go back up eventually to fight John Jones, or I don't know. We'll see. See there. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to both of these men in the UFC middleweight division. All right, let's move on to topic number 2 here in my 5-minute topics. Start the clock, 5 minutes. I promise I'll go exactly 5 minutes. Maybe I'll lessen one of these to keep the show short here. But just notable performances. And this is what I'm going to do every week. Just go over some notable ones for you. That way I don't spend 2 hours going over every single fight here. But notable performances for me on UFC Vegas 23. You had Mackenzie Dern. You had Arnold Allen, of course. You had Matisse Gamrot. You had Jack Short. You had Joe Solecki. And you had Julian Marquez. I think those were some of the more impressive performances for various reasons. I mean, Julian Marquez, he goes out there, looks great against Sam Alvey, puts him away, hurts him in the second round, submits him, a nice rear naked choke from behind. Joe Solecki, that's a hard-fought victory against Joe Miller. Jack Shore, he showed off all of his jiu-jitsu. He showed off some of his striking as well, some of his guts in that fight. Matisse Gamrot showed off certainly some of his footwork, some of that slick footwork, and that 1-2 combination he landed was, wow, it was beautiful. If I could give a little bit of a beautiful kiss there, that was what that Gamrot combination was. Arnold Allen, maybe the toughest win of the night against Sodiq Yusuff, who Yusuf's a talented prospect. That was one of those prospect fights that you have to love, right? I mean, you had Allen, who could challenge for the title, and Yusuff, who could challenge for the title, fighting each other in the co-main event. That was a great fight. That was a hard-fought win for Arnold Allen, and he was outlanded by Yusuff in that fight, although Allen landed the more notable punches. And then you have Mackenzie Dern, who was able to submit Nina Nunez, formerly Nina Ansarov, but she submits Nina Nunez with an armbar. A good win for Mackenzie Dern in that one. So a lot of notable performances there, and not to take away from anybody's, but I'm just going to go over now who I think is the most, who I thought had the biggest win, who I'm most impressed with, and who I think moving forward I most want to see here, actually. I shouldn't say most want to see, because guys like, and maybe I'm going to give this way a little bit, but guys like Arnold Allen, I'm really excited to see him, Marquez, all these guys. I'm excited to see all these guys. But coming out of UFC Vegas 23, the person I was most impressed with, the most impressive win, I think, from UFC Vegas 23, and again, maybe this is somewhat controversial, was Mackenzie Dern. And the reason for that, just hear me out on this, okay? Because Arnold Allen, again, that was the opponent he was facing, higher level. No offense to Nina Nunez, although Nina Nunez has been a veteran over the years. She was a popular pick this weekend to maybe have an upset, or, not even an upset. She was the favorite, right, over Mackenzie Dern. So I'm not saying that any of these other wins, I'm not trying to take them away, but just hear me out on this. Arnold Allen, what does Arnold Allen have? A ton of skill. He's always had pretty much a ton of skill. And I'm not saying he hasn't made improvements, but he's kept climbing the ladder. He's always had some sort of skill level that you have to love in mixed martial arts, that you thought he could take him to high places. Okay. Gamrot. I've always thought Gamrot has enough skills. I've always thought if he puts everything together, he could do what we saw this past Saturday. Jack Shore, Cage Warriors. We've seen that grappling. We've seen that jiu-jitsu. That's going to keep continuing. Is he going to have to keep improving? Yes. Again, all these guys are. Joe Solecki, same thing. Julian Marquez. Marquez, though, last fight out, he was a little rusty at first, but, Marquez is, and by the way, I do love the Marquez post-fight comments. I love that. Calling out Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill with the pickleball. I do love that. And the last time out, Miley Cyrus, I do love that. He's a fun guy, and maybe that rates him higher on the list here. But Marquez, he's always had this kind of skill level. He's always kind of had that ability to do that. Mackenzie Dern, though, what we're seeing from her right now, this fight against Nunes and her last fight out, and honestly the last few fights, or since she's come back after giving birth to her child, Mackenzie Dern just has this level that she seems to have just something clicked in her. You know what I mean? Like that's why to me that this win over Nina Nunes was one of the most impressive of this card, and why Mackenzie Dern, I'm most excited to see her moving forward. I know what Arnold Allen can do. I think he's going to keep doing some amazing things. I think he's going to challenge at some point in the featherweight division. Sodiq Yusuff might even do the same thing. But Mackenzie Dern is making a serious run right now for that strawweight title, and I wouldn't have guessed that a few years ago. I know she's always been a world-class jiu-jitsu champion, but her striking wasn't there. Her wrestling wasn't there. But you see now that she's put together enough things where her striking, she has enough pressure, she has enough chaos in the pocket inside the octagon that she can do. She's not a pushover striking. She can do enough where she can push you back now at least. And then her wrestling. She dives in on some single legs, she dives in on some double legs, and she tries to get you to the ground. Or she tries to use, again, that jiu-jitsu skill she's always had to at least roll you up and get you on the ground, pull guard, something like that. So I really like what I'm seeing from Mackenzie Dern right now. I'm really impressed. Her cardio, her fitness has improved as well. This is somebody who, when she first got to the UFC, was having trouble making weight. She seems to not be having issues now. She seems to be taking her game to the next level, and that's why Mackenzie Dern, to me, had the most impressive win outside of again, you could put Marvin Vettori in there. Outside of some of these other fighters, at least to me, was the most impressive win from UFC Vegas 23. Let me know your thoughts over on Twitter, at Jeff_Brantley. Instagram, I guess, as well, too, at Jeff_Brantley. Let me know what you think about that. But yeah, and I'll sum it up here and move to my next topic in a second here. But yeah, I think Mackenzie Dern, to me, I'm really excited to see what she can do moving forward. I saw that she had quoted her. She was giving some quotes that she hopes to fight for a title by the end of the year. I would say, why not? Yeah, what she's doing right now, why not? Now, we'll see how realistic that is, what the UFC thinks of her. Could she hit a speed bump still? Yes, but I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing from Mackenzie Dern right now. She's a very dangerous fighter. That jiu-jitsu's always been there. But now that she's using some wrestling, using some of these other things, getting a little bit striking, at least some chaos to her game, making it effective enough where you can not give you a pushover when you're striking, very promising. And something like Chase Hooper, for instance. Chase Hooper's obviously he's grappling very good. If Chase Hooper should follow this blueprint of get enough chaotic striking, get enough weapons with your striking, and then get enough wrestling where you're a more complete fighter. You know what I mean? Where you can do things a little bit more effectively. And that's what Mackenzie Dern has done. But very excited about that. But again, not taking away from the rest of them. Arnold Allen, I expect him challenged soon. Gamrot, I like what I saw there. Shore, same thing. Solecki and Marquez. And honestly, I didn't even talk a lot about Solecki there, but that win over Jim Miller, that was a very, very good win, a very hard-fought win right there. All right, let's move to topic number 3 here so I can keep it moving. And actually has to do with UFC Vegas 23 as well as I start my 5 minutes here. But it doesn't have to do with any of the fighters. It has to do more with the commissions, with the promoters themselves, but MMA judging. And this was a popular, and it kind of lessened as the card went on the other day, but this was a popular thing everybody was talking about early on that card, Saturday afternoon there, that the judging early on in UFC Vegas 23 was horrendous. You look at the Luis Saldana fight against Jordan Griffin. Jordan Griffin should have won that fight. That was a robbery. That is plain and simple a robbery. That Saldana shouldn't have won that fight. And as somebody who was a Saldana bettor, actually, That's coming from me. That's all done. I should have lost that fight. So terrible MMA judging early on in that card. Luckily, as the card went on, and there was a few other fights, there was some other, you'd get a 29-28 or you'd get a split decision here and there that shouldn't have been. Luckily, again, as the fight went on, it improved a little bit, but still not a good day for the judges. And to me, it's frustrating and sad because obviously, it's as a fan, if you're the athlete itself, actually the fighters themselves, it's even more frustrating because this is your livelihood. So this is a problem that needs to be adjusted. And to me, it's more frustrating too because it could have been adjusted already. The judging issue could have been fixed already, in my opinion. And that's what's I'm going to tear my hair out on the program today just because this is tomorrow, today. I mean, next week, I don't care when it is. A couple weeks ago, Dana White, all these promoters, the commissions themselves even, this is an issue that should have been fixed, and it can be fixed. And there's a few ways you can do it. And I'll go over those in a second. Maybe one I have a couple of them, maybe ones you haven't heard, one that you have heard already. And I'll just get that one right off the bat here. But open scoring, that could have already been implemented. You've already heard that one. A lot of people agree with that one. They also disagree with that one. I understand both arguments that, open scoring would lead to fighters taking rounds off, but I've also, I agree with the other side of things too, that if you do have open scoring, it does lead to more action as a fighter would know they're behind on the scorecards. No matter what you think about it, you have to agree that this would, to some extent, help the judging problem, because even if you think fighters would take rounds off, this would at least allow fighters, and again, this doesn't actually fix bad scorecards, but it does fix some of the competitive nature of all these fights, that you would at least give fighters the chance to know if they're down or not. The Saldana-Griffin fight. Griffin would know, hey, this is a very close fight. I'm not winning this going away. I'm going to have to do something very definite in this third round. I'm going to have to go out there and do something very definite in this round, and any fighter would need to do that. Again, I understand both sides of it. I do think you'd get some stinker rounds here and there, but open scoring, I think, would fix a little bit of this problem. So that's frustration number one for me, and part of the fix number one here. That can we get open scoring in MMA already? Let's get it. I think it's time, especially if listen. And my next two things are actually more with the judging itself and fixing the actual scoring. But if we're not going to do my next two, let's get open scoring in there. Okay, my next two though, this one a little easier. Number one, can we get judges separated into the two different sports? Meaning, I don't want to see boxing judges scoring MMA fights, and I don't want to see MMA judges, scoring boxing fights. Okay, boxing bouts. I don't want to see crossover here. I want to see MMA judges on the MMA end, and I want to see boxing judges on the other end. Oh, it's going to take more people, hiring more people. I mean, I'm sure some fans out there, including myself, would love to go get paid to do some judging, okay? Heck, give me some, let me do it every weekend with some perks. I'll go do it for free. You don't have to pay me anything. I mean, I'm sure there's some other people out there too like that, let's figure it out here. There's no excuses for that. Let's get the judges separated. And then also, let's just teach them a little bit more. Can we go out there? Can we talk to these judges? Can we get on the same page and say, hey, is there a philosophy you have? Is there something different that you do? That type of thing. Let's get on that same page with them. And then last thing I would suggest here, and again, maybe this is more of the philosophy of judges, but let's outline a little bit better, especially in mixed martial arts. Can we outline 10-8 rounds a little bit better? I think that would significantly help the scoring as well. If we could outline easier what a 10-8 round is, what a 10-7 round would be. I know there's not many 10-7 rounds in MMA, but let's outline that a little bit easier. In boxing, it's super easy. A 10-8 round. You get a knockdown, it's a 10-8 round, unless the guy really fights back in the round. He'd really have to fight back. Otherwise, it's an automatic 10-8. And I understand mixed martial arts, it's a little bit different because there's the grappling part of the fight. You have to go to the ground with them, controlling the fighter in the clinch. I know there's a lot more elements in MMA, but can we get a little bit of an easier outline there? That, if a fighter gets knocked down and you control them, that's an automatic 10-8. Can we get that? I know there's only 3 rounds, but come on, let's do that. Let's outline the 10-8 rounds a little bit easier. Let's separate the judges, MMA judges scoring MMA fights, boxing judges scoring boxing fights, teach them, get on the same level with them, and then again, if all else fails, or all together, let's get open scoring going. But I think it's up to the promoters, and I know I'm over here again, so I'll stop the clock and move to my next topic, but I think it's up to the promoters a little bit here, guys. I mean, this is up to Dana White, and I think it's a little bit of their fault. And to be honest with you, I think they don't mind that. Dana White loves going out there and saying, finish the fight. It was even one of the mottos of one of the UFC video games, right, from EA Sports, that, go out there and finish the fight. And Dana White wants guys to go out there and finish fights. He wants fighters to go out there and finish fights. It's exciting. It's for the fans. That leads to better ratings. It leads to highlight videos. You know what I mean? That's what he wants. Joaquin Buckley. That's what Dana White wants. And I don't blame him. I'm not saying that's bad. But because he wants that, I think there's less of a willingness to go to the commissions, go to the judges, go to, whatever you have to take, whatever steps you have to do as a promoter to go to a lot of these groups and say, this is what we need fixed. You know what I mean? Because someone like Dana White has a lot of pull in that community. He's got a lot of say. You know what I mean? So if he goes to a lot of these people and says, hey, we need to get this done. We need this judging to be different. I want this in place. I want open scoring. I want easier 10-8 rounds. I don't know if I like this, but I've heard other people say, get rid of the rounds in MMA. Make it a make it a 15-minute fight, a straight 15-minute fight. Cool. Whatever it is. If you go to the commissions, if you go to the right people and do this, I'm sure Dana White, even Scott Coker, some of these guys, I'm sure they could maybe start to get some change implemented in these sports and get some better judging, because it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan. It's frustrating for the fighters. I'm sure that you're not going to always get the finish. There's going to be decisions. You got to get them right, though. All right, so that was topic number 3 there. We'll go to topic number 4, and I'll spend a little bit less on this one. I'll promise I'll go through it to make up some time here, but we'll start the clock. Bellator 256 from this past Friday. Getting back to the fights themselves. Ryan Bader, he beat Lyoto Machida first round of the light heavyweight Grand Prix tournament in Bellator. A good win for Ryan Bader, and exercises a little bit of demons. Of course, Bader, 2012, he was beat by Lyoto Machida. Gets the win this time around, uses his wrestling, controls Machida easily. To be honest with you, I don't know if it was ever in doubt. Machida's not to say he's never going to win a fight again, but he's kind of, his career starting to droop down, starting to sag down a little bit here, starting to get a little bit washed, as Machida's just not the same fighter now. So that was an easy win for Bader, but still, opening round of the light heavyweight tournament in Bellator, and really excited about this one. I mean, we get some more fights coming up on Friday. You've got Nemkov back in action. You have Corey Anderson back in action, Davis as well. So you have some exciting light heavyweight fights coming up in this Bellator tournament, and I got to be honest with you. This is one of those tournaments that really, again, pushes forward my thoughts on the light heavyweight division of Bellator, that I think prior to the last few months here, I would have said it's better than the UFC's light heavyweight division. I'll put that on the back burner just a little bit now, that I do think Glover Teixeira, what he's been able to do, I love the Jan Blachowicz-Israel Adesanya fight. That was great. Blachowicz himself beat Dominic Reyes. I think there's some pieces there in the light heavyweight division of the UFC's light heavyweight division that make it interesting again, because it was so boring for so long. And a lot of that was John Jones just winning some easy fights, getting easy wins. Can you take away from the division because of that? I don't know, but certainly it was getting a little bit boring, right? And John Jones, for as dominant as he was, his fights weren't exactly exciting. You know what I mean? So the light heavyweight division in the UFC was very down for a long time. It's getting back up a little bit, but for a long time, I thought the Bellator light heavyweight division was way better than the UFC's light heavyweight division. A lot of that is Vadim Nemkov, who I'm very excited to see fight this Friday again. Nemkov, to me, is the best light heavyweight in the world right now. And I know you Bellator haters out there will scream at me and shake your fist that Bellator talent is inferior. But it's not. I mean, frankly, it's not. And I don't think that argument has any place anywhere anymore. We're seeing that now with Michael Chandler. He's fighting for the title. I know it was only one fight, but he went out there and starched Dan Hooker. He made Dan Hooker look like he should go to Bellator, right? If that's your argument, Dan Hooker should be in Bellator. But a lot of you Bellator haters weren't saying that before, right? You were thinking that Dan Hooker was going to go out there and use his pressure, right? Not hating on either one of these guys here. I'm just getting back to just trying to lay out my Bellator. I have a bit of a passion here. I get so much hate on Twitter from my Bellator thoughts that I think Bellator, the talent-wise, is starting to creep up a little bit, including Nemkov, that he might be the best light heavyweight in the world. And it's a bit frustrating because I do think he's the best light heavyweight in the world. And I think we're seeing that. Michael Chandler, again, he's one of them. Patricio Pitbull, I think he could fight in the UFC. If you had a cross-promotional event. And then certainly Nemkov, as I said, I think he's there. Which makes me think, again, that this Bellator light heavyweight division, I think it's up. I think it's up on the same. I think it's up there with the UFC light heavyweight division, if not better. Again, maybe the UFC light heavyweight division starting to creep up a little bit more again because of some of the more excitement, because of some of these fighters like Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya trying his hand at the light heavyweight division. Maybe the UFC's light heavyweight division, maybe it creeps up a little closer. Maybe it's a little bit more even now, but I still think, for my money, I still think the Bellator light heavyweight division is right there, if not better. And, you look at the other fighters in this division now. It's not just Vadim Nemkov. I think Ryan Bader's still got plenty left in the tank. I know it was against Machida, but I think Bader does. Corey Anderson, while I don't think he's the best, anywhere near the best light heavyweight in the world. I know he lost to Jan Blachowicz. His chin's a little gone now, but I still think Corey Anderson's got some left in the tank. They've got Anthony Rumble Johnson now. I know he hasn't fought in a while, but I think when he comes back, I think he's going to be healthy. He hasn't fought in a while. I think he's going to be a monster. Yoel Romero, I think this is the right weight class for him. Was he not very exciting at the end of his UFC career? No, but he was still in some big-time fights. And I think now that he's not cutting down to middleweight, I think it's going to be a different Yoel Romero you see. So I really like this Bellator light heavyweight division. I think it's up there with the UFC light heavyweight division, if not better right now. But I'm very excited to get back to this Friday, and I'll go a little shorter here on this topic. Very excited to see Nemkov back in there coming up this Friday on that Bellator 257 event now, as well as Corey Anderson. Excited to see him get back into the cage as well for Bellator coming up this Friday. All right, last topic in my 5-minute topics. Again, I'll go a little shorter on this one because I went over on some of the other ones. But topic number 5 here, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, both these guys feuding a little bit now. Both these guys exchanging barbs a little bit now. It appears Conor McGregor, for you wrestling fans out there, and by the way, I do have a wrestling thought at the end of the show today. You wrestling fans, you won't want to miss this. I do have a thought on the end of the show at that. But Conor McGregor, for you wrestling fans out there, he's turning heel a little bit, it seems here, as both guys going back and forth on Twitter. If you've missed it, which why you would, I don't know, but in case you did, Dustin Poirier essentially coming out. Conor McGregor coming out first, of course, getting some trash talk out there to Dustin Poirier. Poirier then replying on Twitter, accusing Conor McGregor of not donating the money that he had promised to Dustin Poirier's The Good Fight charity. So Conor McGregor, before this last fight, right, they were fighting, what was that, back a couple months ago, whatever it is now, the year's flying by, a few months ago, last fight around, right, Poirier and McGregor. McGregor promised Poirier that he would donate money to Poirier's charity after the fight. That was promised. And Poirier has now come out, and it was $500,000. That was what was agreed upon, apparently. It's come out now after that, according to Poirier, saying that his team never got that money from Conor McGregor, that they got in touch with him after the fight, after he beat him, and Conor McGregor didn't donate that money, still hasn't donated that money. So that kind of started this. I mean, there was some trash talk coming from Conor, but that really, when someone's accusing, this is some harsh, I would say harsh accusations. There's some other things going on out there in the sports world, of maybe some of them, from the Houston Texans that are obviously, those are a little, that's even more harsh. Those are more even, those are a little more serious, but this is still pretty serious. He's accusing a guy here of not paying money to a charity. He's calling him kind of a, you're Ebenezer Scrooge, Conor. You're not, you're starving the, people out there. You're not giving the money to the charity here. So these are kind of some serious accusations from Dustin Poirier here. Conor McGregor then comes back, in so many ways says, hey, well, you know what, whatever. I'm not going to fight you in July 10th now. It's a whole thing again. Go check out both guys' Twitter, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. It's all on Twitter. But both these guys feuding now. A little bit more, as I said, venom, a little bit more heat between this matchup now as we get closer to the July 10th coming up later this summer. And I got to tell you, I love this. Now, you can go deeper. You can break it down of, should Conor have paid him the money? Yeah, of course he should. It's a charity. Don't be a, don't be a dirtbag, Conor. Go give the money to the charity. You know what I mean? If you said you would, then go do it. But, on another level here, though, I do love this, that maybe this next time around, and before we get to July 10th here, maybe this matchup's going to be a little bit more heated, and I love that, because this last time around, it was too lovey-dovey. I thought that was really weird that you had the first matchup between these two way back when Conor was coming up and Poirier was starting to become an established name. You have Conor knock him out in that fight, of course, in the first round, but you had both guys really going at it before the fight. Then this fight around, it was kind of like, hey, Poirier was, I want to go out there, exercise some demons here. I lost the last time around, whatever. I'm going to go out there. It's all business. You had Conor, kind of saying, I don't hate Dustin this time around. It was kind of weird. It was still a great fight, a lot of build up to it. But there wasn't that animosity you saw between the two in the first one, which was a lot of fun. And I think you're definitely going to get that certainly now, going into July 10th later this summer, if we get the fight. And by the way, you're still going to get the fight. I mean, I'm not saying any of this is fake. I don't think they would drum up a lot of this unless Conor agreed to being called a non-charity payer or whatever you want to call it here. I don't think that's drummed up, but I do think it's a little drummed up that, saying, hey, is the fight going to happen? Or Conor saying, hey, July 10th, I want to fight somebody else now. The fight's going to happen. I mean, Poirier gave up a title fight for this. He gave up the lightweight title fight. He should have been fighting for the title so he could fight Conor McGregor again here. There's no way he's not going to fight Conor McGregor. No way he's not going to fight him. That fight's going to happen. It's going to have some more heat to it coming up later this summer, and I'm excited for it. I'm all for it. And I'm all for heel Conor, by the way. I hated face Conor. I hated Conor going out there and being all friendly to everybody. I want trash talk Conor, and I'm excited to see that. And by Conor too, putting out a video on Instagram. I tweeted it out, or I commented on it the other day. Conor McGregor putting a video out on Instagram of him working out in the gym. He already looks a little lighter. He already looks a little quicker, and he already looks like he's working on his kicking game a little bit. It's one video. I'm not going to go too crazy over it. We can break it down on another show, but certainly that's good news for Conor McGregor if he wants to get back to his winning ways in the UFC. Otherwise, I'm not so sure Conor's... I know his best days are behind him, but he's got to do some things if he wants to stick around in the UFC right now. If he wants to win some fights again, if he wants to be relevant in the lightweight division, certainly he's going to have to do some of those things. But the video definitely showed some of that from Conor. But an interesting subject. We'll keep following it right here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports podcast. All right, that's my 5-minute topics. I'm going to get into my parting shots now, and I'm going to get out of here. By the way, we'll be back later this week. I'm going to try to do multiple shows a week. Coming up for the next, I don't know, we'll see how long, just because there's a lot coming up. I mean, you have another one championship card coming up Wednesday. You have another Bellator card coming up on Friday. You also have an LFA card on Friday. You've got another UFC card later this month. Of course, we have the next UFC pay-per-view, UFC 261. We're going to have fans back in the arena. Thank God. We're going to have cheering again with fights. So a lot coming up later this month. In LFA, all of those, Bellator, a lot of them sticking around. I didn't even mention PFL yet, the Professional Fighters League. They're coming back very soon here at the end of the month. So a lot coming up. I'm going to try to do multiple shows a week to preview some of these cards, keep giving you some of these subjects, my thoughts on them, that type of thing. So stick right here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, again, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports podcast, as well as subscribing on the audio version of the podcast, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys. All right, parting shots here, and I'll get out of here. First one, going back to this Saturday a little bit on that UFC Vegas 23 card. I had talked about it last week on a parting shot, the Venom deal. Both how the uniforms, how the fight kits themselves looked, and then also the payout for the fighters. And I hated the uniforms. I thought they looked similar. I didn't think they looked cool enough. If you're gonna rebrand some uniforms, let's get a little bit different, right? On top of that, the pay structure wasn't great, right? A lot of the payouts for fighters didn't change that much. So I thought this was kind of a mute point for the UFC. I mean, hey, we've got a new Venom deal. It didn't, to me, I thought it was kind of like, going into this Saturday's card, the uniforms look okay, the fight kits look okay, payout's not great, whatever. Let's move along. Let's just get to the fights. But I will say, after watching this card this past Saturday, I do like the designs a little bit more. Am I in love with them still, as other people are, or as I have been with some other uniforms in the past? No, I'm not. I'm still not in love with them, but I like them a little bit more. I will say they do have a little bit, pizzazz to them. Some of them are cooler than others. Like the red trunks, I believe Yorgan De Castro was wearing in his fight. I thought his trunks were pretty cool. I thought some of the other colors were cool. Some of them, though, still look a little bland to me. But you know what? I've coming around a little bit on them. I know they can still, and I said it on the past show too, I still think there's opportunities in the future for them to really change the design. So I'm not writing it off yet. But I am coming around a little bit on it. The designs are a little bit cooler than I thought they would look. And I still think in the future they can do some cool things. So I'm trending up. My stock is, I think my thoughts on the Venom deal, trending up a little bit. As far as payout structure goes, though, this was tweeted out, and this was posted of what each fighter got for the payout. And this wasn't breaking news. Again, the payout structure didn't change over the weekend. It was already outlined. But you look again how the fighters were paid out. It's all based upon how many fights you have. So if you're a veteran, if you're Donald Cerrone, if you're Jim Miller, you're loving this deal. You don't really care. But for the fighters who are just coming up, if you're a Tom Aspinall, a heavyweight, or if you're a Kay Hansen, who's even part of, she's even modeling off some of these new fight kits. You don't like this so much, right? You're not getting paid as much in this Venom deal because you don't have a lot of fights underneath your belt. That's the part still where that needs to change. I mean, this is a sport where longevity is usually not given to many fighters. There's not many Donald Cerrones out there. There's not many Jim Millers out there. And even if you keep fighting, Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller, even how they've kept fighting, not many people can stick around in the same promotion, though. You know what I mean? And that's why this deal is a little bit, They still need it. I don't know if it'll be this time around. Obviously, it might be in the future. That needs to change. Yeah, you need to get to a point where even the fighters that are coming up on the scene get paid better than that. I mean, it can't be based off of that. This is not a longevity sport. This isn't the NBA. In the NBA, yes, this would be a great deal in the NBA. You don't want to know why? Because again, you're LeBron James of the world. Your other players. You can stick around in the league a little bit. As long as your skills stay up, you can do it. But in mixed martial arts, in the combat sports game, health is a big part of it. And this is a very contact sport. This is the ultimate contact sport. This is the ultimate physical sport that your health's going to break down maybe over time. So you gotta treat these fighters better. I want to see the payout structure change a little bit there. But design-wise, definitely going up a little bit for that Venom deal. All right, parting shot number 2 for everybody. Going back to Bellator here, some more comments from Scott Coker, the president of Bellator. Actually, second show in a row that going to talk about something Scott Coker has said in a press conference or something he said on Twitter. Last show, of course, I talked about Scott Coker going out on Twitter saying that he would be up for a cross-promotional event between UFC and Bellator, some sort of promotions. Of course, he's already done Risen, but he was specifically talking about the UFC, so he said that. But now Scott Coker coming out too and saying that he wants to have a women's featherweight divisional tournament. And why this is so big, of course, again, is because the UFC's featherweight division has essentially just been disbanded. They've kind of come out in so many ways, beating around the bush a little bit, saying, we're not getting rid of it yet. This is we're still deciding it, that type of thing. There's really nobody left there. And I can't blame them for that. I'm not saying the UFC's wrong with that. I mean, Amanda Nunes has beaten everybody. She's beaten Megan Anderson. She's beaten Felicia Spencer. She beat Chris Cyborg underneath the same promotion. So Amanda Nunes has beaten everybody in the featherweight division. I can't blame the UFC for saying, you know what, there's no competition here. There's no competitiveness. Let's just bring Nunes down to the bantamweight division in the short term, and let's just see in the future what happens. I can't blame them for that. But I do like Bellator doing this because I do think if you make a huge push, if you really push to make something good, I do think you can get something out of something. You know what I mean? And maybe maybe I'm simplifying that too much, and maybe I'm confusing out there a little bit too much. But I just mean that if you give up on something, of course it's not going to be good. If you don't try enough on something too, of course it's not going to be to the quality you want it to be. But if you really try to make something good, you can definitely make something better, right? Now, what the level of that will be, that's the question. I mean, that's still ultimately where I see the UFC's point on this, and maybe the UFC in the long run, if they do get rid of the women's featherweight division, that could be a smart move for them. It could be a lot of Bellator might be wasting their time with this one, but I do think it's interesting, and I do think they definitely have some stock in the division. I mean, they went out and got Chris Cyborg. They want the women's featherweight division in Bellator to be relevant, and frankly, they can't afford for it to not go away. So this is a smart move by them, and I'm curious to see if their approach works. I'm excited for it, actually. I do want to see what happens here, and I do think that in the long run, because the ultimate thing is one of the bigger free agents looming, of course, in all of mixed martial arts is Kayla Harrison from the PFL, who is a featherweight, who's going to fight she's going to fight in a big MMA promotion at some point at featherweight. Now, will it be the UFC or Bellator? This could give Bellator a leg up here, that they're going to make a very conceited effort to go out there, make the featherweight division relevant, give Cyborg some opponents, make Cyborg keep fighting, try to get some competition going here and there, and then maybe Kayla Harrison does go to Bellator instead of the UFC. Maybe, but again, it's the UFC. It's biggest 3 letters in MMA. So maybe Kayla Harrison would still choose it. But I like that Bellator is going out there. They're going to make an effort to try to make the featherweight division relevant. To what level they can get it at, I don't know, but I think it's good that they're going to try, though. I definitely think giving up on it, I don't giving up completely on it. I don't think I agree with that. I do think if you keep looking for talent, I think you will find some. I do think you will. I think you just got to look for it, right? It'll be tough. Maybe one of the toughest divisions in all of MMA right now, honestly, to find talent at. I mean, you can go to, if you go to one championship, if you go around the world, you can find some atomweights, right? You can find different weight classes in mixed martial arts if you're some of these promotions. But women's featherweight division, one of those right now that it's kind of tough to find some talent. But I like Bellator going out there making an effort for that. So Scott Coker saying that. And then parting shot number 3. And last week I did, or not, well, last week, it was last week, but last show, this past Friday, I did a year later, reflecting on COVID. We're kind of coming out of that now, obviously. As I said, I just got my vaccine, and a lot of other people are. Or at least, even if no matter what your thoughts on anything are, we've got fans and crowds now. We've got arenas. We got stadiums coming now. So we've got a lot going on now. It seems like most states have opened back up. Obviously, a lot of things going away. So we're kind of returning to some sort of normalcy, right? It's still a little bit of a new normal, but we're kind of returning some normal in the COVID world. So maybe I'll make, and that's what I talked about on Friday. And I thought moving forward, maybe I'll make my parting shot number 3 something like that. That's a little bit more evergreen, if you will. You know what I mean? That's a little bit, that isn't specifically about a specific fight or a topic, that type of thing. And I'm going to go there again today, okay? And this one, and I did talk about this last show too, Godzilla versus King Kong, how I hated the movie. And how I liked Justice League a little bit better. And maybe I was, Snyder's Cut, not the original Justice League, Snyder's Cut. I talked about Godzilla versus Kong, though, and how I didn't like it as much. So I feel like I'm becoming a little bit of an old man. So my next thing I'm going to talk about in parting shot number 3 here, I'm going to go a little bit more of an old man. And maybe that's just the realization. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's what this parting shot number 3 should be more about. I'm going to turn 30 years old this year. I'm becoming a little bit of an old guy, a cranky old guy. I feel like I am with all my thoughts on everything. That I'm just, not that I'm no fun guy. I love fun still. I'm not the guy that is telling baseball players not to celebrate or flip a bat when they hit a home run. I'm not that guy yet, I guess. Maybe I'll change. But I'm not that guy yet. But I'm not no fun guy totally. But I am old guy sometimes still. And I'm starting to notice that more and more. And I noticed that again this past weekend. Okay, so we had WrestleMania this past weekend, right? And a lot of you out there, a lot of you listen to the show, a lot of MMA fans, you're into wrestling, right? You're into the WWE. WrestleMania, it was a 2-night event, I believe. Cool, whatever. I get everyone's into something different, okay? And again, I want you to keep listening to the show, so I'm not going to hate on you too much, okay? But I got to tell you, every single year of the past 3 or 4 years here, and I used to be a wrestling guy actually back in the day, especially when I was younger. But the older I've gotten here, the more annoyed I've gotten at wrestling fans. I don't know why. And again, this is like an old man. I think I'm like becoming the cranky old guy, get off my lawn type of thing. But this past weekend I see people tweeting out about it of, hey, weather report, 5 minutes till the event starts. We're under a current weather delay. I see all that this past weekend. I also see, people tweeting out of, historic night. What an historic night. First time ever in a main. I see people this past weekend tweeting stuff like that out. And I'm just like, again, this is old guy. I want you to keep listening to the show. You can send me hate mail all you want on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. Or maybe I'll give my email out. You can email me. But I'm becoming an old guy now where I'm like, shut up, pal. No one cares about your wrestling take. Is that just me? I know there's a lot of wrestling fans out there, but I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. I mean, again, everyone's into something. I'm sure I'm into stuff that people aren't into. I understand that. But at the same time, it's entertainment, right? And I'm not... I know that the typical take would be is, hey, it's fake, guy, right? This is fake. It's wrestling. It's fake, guy, right? It's obviously fake, so I won't throw that at you. But I'll say it's entertainment, right? It's entertainment, right? I mean, you don't see me on Twitter on a Sunday night. You don't see me on Twitter on a Monday night when I'm watching something with my wife, tweeting out I'm not giving play-by-play of a TV show. I'm not giving play-by-play of a movie. I just talked about Snyder Cut again. I'm not like, hey, what a cool moment for Wonder Woman. She does this and that in Justice League, right? I'm not doing that. I'm not on Twitter on a Sunday night talking about Dateline as I watch with my wife. I'm not like, hey, update, this guy did. I'm not doing that. And that, to me, that's what's frustrating about it. It's a TV show. It's a movie. You're tweeting about it like it is a live event. I understand that. But it's not. It's rehearsed. I don't know. Again, if you're into it, that's fine. And, the weather stuff wasn't even that bad. Like, I understand that. I think what really annoyed me, what really made me old man, or what really does, and it's not even just WrestleMania. I'll see it other times with wrestling fans. I think it's the historic tweets. I hate those. Like, hey, this was a historic event. This was a historic thing. You realize that they could have done it, right? Like, hey, the first, so-and-so, nationality to win a title. Well, they could have done it like a year ago. It's written in. That's what bothers me. It's like it's a written in thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand it. I don't. Again, I'm getting older. That's the thing. I love you all out there. If you're into wrestling, again, I'm not, whatever. But I'm getting old, though, where I get annoyed. Like, next year during WrestleMania, I might just mute myself on Twitter. I'm gonna jump off of Twitter for a whole weekend. I can't stand it anymore. I just can't. I can't take it. If I see one more wrestling take, and I know I even have some guests on the show that are wrestling fans, and again, that's fine. I'm not ripping anybody, but I might have to get off Twitter. Maybe it's a personal problem. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I need to get off of Twitter. I'm not the wrestling fans. You can tweet at me at Jeff_Brantley. Post something on Instagram. Post a wrestling photo and tag me in it on Instagram at Jeff_Brantley as well. We'll talk about it. But that's just my thoughts on it. And all fans allowed, though, here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. I do love all of you out there, but had to get that off my chest a little bit, and also had to get all these other topics off my chest, and I'll get more topics off my chest later this week when I jump back on, probably tomorrow or the next day. I'll go over, we'll see what timing we go here. Maybe we'll go Thursday. Actually, we'll aim for Thursday being episode 84 of the show. Maybe after that one championship card, I'll come on, react to that, and also talk about some of the other things coming up this week. Because, again, this is a big mixed martial arts week. We have one championships. I just mentioned that. We have LFA coming up. We have Bellator again. Nemkov in action. We have the next UFC, was it Vegas card, I guess, still? Yeah, UFC Vegas card still coming up on Saturday. Gaslam taking on Robert Whittaker. That's going to be a fun fight. A ton coming up this weekend. I'm going to be back to break it down right here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. No WrestleMania takes again, though. I won't go to any more of those, but I'll be back later this week to talk about some mixed martial arts with all of you. And again, tweet at me, at Jeff_Brantley. Follow me on Instagram as well, at Jeff_Brantley. Also, go follow the YouTube channel. We're on video. I love it. This is fun to get on video, talk to you all. Eventually, it will be live so that when I give all my takes, when I'm joking around with you out there, when I'm talking about some of these other things that you don't like, you can respond. You can comment right away with me, and we can have a conversation right away. That will come eventually, though. I will be live on YouTube and some of the other platforms too, planning on Twitch, that type of thing, sooner rather than later here. But until then, go ahead and still follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. That way you can follow, get the latest notifications whenever a video drops. And then again, the other audio versions of the pod still available. I know you're driving to work sometimes, you're doing other things, maybe on the weekend. So go ahead and subscribe to the other channels again as well. The Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, guys. Go check it out. All right, everybody. I'll be back, as I said, on Thursday. Maybe I'll do 3 shows this week. We'll see. But I'll be back later this week for episode 84 of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. But until then, everybody, I'll talk to you later. Take care.